never seen anything like that. I mean, I've seen jiu-jitsu, but those guys are amazing.
A great honor to have the Machado brothers.
Machado.
It's Carlos Machado.
Content warning. This episode includes discussion of mental health struggles, sexual abuse, and suicide, which may be distressing for some listeners. Viewer discretion is advised. If you or anyone you know is struggling, consider reaching out to a trusted person or expert in the area.
All right, everybody, let's get the ball rolling. Okay, I'm here with Duane Spires. Duane, it seems like I know you much longer than I do. And I feel that it's not uncommon to you because you're very genuine, you're very straightforward, and you're very passionate about the things that you do. You represent an amazing brand, the kind of people that I've had the witness to interact with from your group, every single one. And we have some common members that do jiu-jitsu with me, and they do the success team, with you, and they're amazing people. That tells me what kind of person they have that they follow.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. And we're going to just dig and have a conversation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
All right. Let's get it on. Okay, so why don't we start with some things that come to mind? And we're going to talk about some of the feedback that I got from being in many of your events and getting to know you behind the scenes a little bit. A lot of times when you meet somebody, what you see is not what you get. Okay? I'd like you to elaborate on that, because a lot of times you're adamant about giving good counsel to your clients, and you tell them, hey, you got to let this one go, or you got to make a decision here and there. Would you mind just kind of sharing with you?
That's a good question. One of the things that I always like to talk about is the way that you do one thing in life is the way that you do all things in life. And when you really step back and think about it, you also have one life. A lot of people talk about, their professional life separate from their family life and also separate from their personal life. And if you're a leader, there's an element of self-leadership that has to happen where you have to be congruent and have integrity in all things that you do. So that's one of the things that's really, really important. And, when you say that, you feel like you've known me for a while, I appreciate that. Like, that means a lot. And, when we have the events that you've attended, it's important for everybody who is in that audience to start to learn, like, you're a leader inside of your martial arts school and everywhere else that you go. It's very important to remember that.
So the whole thing about what happens in Vegas, stay in Vegas, that doesn't apply in real life, does it?
Doesn't fly with me. I mean, it used to back in the day, but I think that we evolve, especially as, it's kind of funny. It's like we go from like being a boy to a young man. We go through puberty once, and then it's almost like we go through like a second evolution to become a man who's grounded and who understands like what it means to have good morals and your head on straight. So it's important to, to really keep that in mind. It's like, again, if you're going to be a leader, you got to put yourself out there and walk with integrity about that.
Yep. Well, so what you say here, it's kind of like a domino. A lot of times, for instance, people say, I can be good in business, but if I mess up at home, if I lie to my wife, if I do something, here and there, I'm still okay on everything else. And I know that based upon some of the things that I believe and some of the things I've seen you say, that a lot of times people have this idea that they can fail in one aspect of their lives, and as long as they don't let that spill into the others. But like you said, you're the same person no matter where you operate.
Right.
So how can you actually save face or be true to yourself or have any degree of integrity if you know you're at fault in one aspect, and even if at others you're not yet messed up?
So we work with hundreds of school owners. And one of the commonalities that we've discovered over the last 10 years of doing this is, and when I say we, I'm talking about my wife, Lauren, and myself, is that in order to be successful in business, you also have to be successful in your personal life. And we see a lot of people that like to hide behind their belt rank, or they like to hide behind their titles. So they'll show up to their academy and they look like they've got it all together. But then behind the scenes, when they go home, everything's falling apart. You know, they could have the best academy in the world, and then all of a sudden their marriage is falling apart, or they're struggling with addiction. And there's no judgment with what I'm saying. This is just part of the human condition. But it's worth noting, because the moment that you can shift your focus and say, hey, I'm going to try to make all parts of my life level up incrementally. We always believe in the concept of 1% improvement. It's like, if we can always improve by 1%, it's not just this cumulative total, like you get, 100% better in 100 days. It's like exponentially better in 100 days, or a year, or 5 to 10 years. So, when we work with all these school owners, it's like the first goal that we have with them is, let's look at all areas. Like, how's your marriage doing? How are you doing as a dad? Are you actually spending time with your kids? We have people who we've had the pleasure of working with that they'll celebrate these big financial wins, but then we'll find out after the fact that like they haven't spent quality time with their kids in, weeks or even months. So I don't see that being a win.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see everybody elevate in all parts.
Well, I have guys that I met that were successful business-wise.
Yeah.
On the numbers, bank accounts, they're all well replenished. But they had 2, 3, 4 marriages. And a lot of their kids became, kind of like at odds with the dad, not having good relationships. And then later on in life, he got older, he got lonely, and looked back and thought, man, I wish I had my family around.
Yeah.
So how do you see this plot unfolding in some of the people that you have counseled, or some of the stories that you've been a witness in real life?
Yeah. There's a concept that we use that's called default future, or sometimes we call it predictable future. And what that means is that if nothing changes in your life, and you have the same circumstances, the same people, and the same problems, and you don't do anything about it, there's this guaranteed predictable future that you're going to live into. And if you really start to think about it, like anybody that's watching this podcast right now, if you want to do this exercise at home and really sit down and go, what's my life and business going to look like 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, if nothing changes and all of these problems and everything that I'm dealing with, it overwhelms me, it still exists. What's going to happen is there's going to be a discovery where you realize that things are actually going to slowly get worse with time instead of getting better. And I think that there's a lot of people that believe in this, like this almost magical finish line. Like, oh, if I just survive the next 10 years, I'm going to have all this money in the bank and everything's going to be great. But in reality, if they ignore their problems and they ignore the stuff that's causing a ton of stress and overwhelm, it just compiles. And then in 10 years, there's going to be a lot of people that wake up and realize they didn't win the game. So I think that's really important, is to kind of identify that default future. And the cool thing about it is we have the ability now, once we identify that, to start making intentional changes so that we can shift the trajectory of that default future. And instead of it something that is just going to happen, it's something that we can create. So I want to encourage everybody to really start kind of reverse engineering the next 10 years and say, hey, look, here's where I am now. Here's the stuff I'm dealing with. What can I do to change it now so that my created future is guaranteed, which is going to be a lot better.
You talked about game. What's the game? What's the game in your opinion? What's
the game of life?
Game of life. Yeah.
The game of life. I mean, you've got jiu-jitsu. You can call that a game. You've got business. You can call that a game. But I think just taking that approach to life and just realizing like the small little plays that you make today make a huge impact tomorrow, not only for yourself as a man, but for your kids and your wife.
Mm-hmm. So has that been always a concept for you, like the game?
It has, but I will also say that things have changed. So over the years, man, just to be completely vulnerable for a little bit here, I remember growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was and still is a very hardworking blue collar guy. He's an electrician. My mom was either like a stay-at-home mom, or she did like an in-home daycare with a couple kids. So we had enough money to eat. We had enough money for shoes, but we weren't going on vacations, right? And one thing that's interesting about growing up like that is you think that money is the big goal. And I thought that. I was like, man, if I can make $1 million one day, everything's going to be amazing. Life's going to be great. And then it gets to this point where you work hard. And for me, it's like every decision that I made was, is it going to get me one step closer to financial success or not? But I wasn't taking into consideration how my marriage was doing and was I spending time with my oldest daughter. So, we've shared this from stage many times, but like our marriage became horrible. We neglected our kid. Like she was in the background. When we owned our own school, we had our summer camp and after school program. We thought that she was okay because she's there. She's hanging out with her friends in our program. She's showing up to martial arts classes. But what wasn't happening, I'm not giving her hugs. I'm not giving her quality time. I'm not giving her attention. And I was doing the same thing with my wife. And, you look at your bank account and you're like, hey, great, we hit our financial goals. But then personally, I realized, when we talk about the concept of playing the game, I was playing the wrong game. I was playing a game that was so financially focused that it took family out of the equation. So now if I could go back and play it differently, and I hope that anybody that's like, in their humble beginnings right now that's watching this can also understand that yes, money's important, but it's like family makes everything so much better. And especially if you're married, marriage is that priority, right? So the game has changed for me tremendously. Like I value time freedom. I value quality time with my wife, Lauren. We have 2 other kids now together. So it's like we have 3 kids and they're all, 21, 10 and 7. So they all have different needs and, different things that they're into. Our 2 youngest, they both train jiu-jitsu, which is so awesome. And the game has changed. And I wish that I didn't have to find that out when I was in my late 30s and 40s compared to when I was in my 20s when we were starting.
Okay, so when you look, I've been, like I said, pleased with every event that I attended with you. The very first one, though, I have to admit, because you always have that idea, I'm going to learn about business. I'm going to learn all the strategies and everything. And I think it was the Friday and Saturday deal, and Friday for the entire day. I had no idea what the transformational was, because you had the 2 distinctions, the transformational first and then the transactional.
Yeah.
I cannot teach you how to be successful in business if you are not clear of all the garbage that you're bringing into the table.
Yeah.
Like you said, people were not ready to receive the knowledge before you came. So is this something that was always the case, and how did that come across?
No, actually, we've been doing 2 or 3 events a year since like 2014. And the first few years, everything was business focused only. It was like marketing, sales, daily operations, knowing your numbers. And that's all that we talked about. And we would see people that would acquire that information that we would teach from stage. They would run back to their business. They would do well. And then about a month later, their results would kind of, tail off a little bit, and they would hit this plateau. Now, albeit it was a better plateau than what they were on, but it was a plateau instead of continuously growing. And then we sat back and I was like, Lauren, I go, look at what we do. Like, we always have books in our hands. We're always trying to read the next book, or we're always trying to go to the next event, the next seminar. We're investing in mentors. And what commonalities did all that have? It was all focused on personal development. So then this idea popped up. We're like, what if we identify the most impactful exercises and the most impactful just aha moments, this knowledge that we've acquired in our studies, let's teach it at the next event. And I'll never forget, man, we had this awesome venue, a circular stage. There was a ton of people. And we start talking about topics that stem as early as childhood, like identifying traumas, things that happened to you when you were a kid, and how is it holding you back as an adult? How are the stories that you created at age 5 to protect yourself because maybe dad left the picture or your parents split up and got a divorce, or maybe you had an alcoholic parent or whatever it was. Let's identify those. Let's identify the stories you created. And let's also discover how those stories that protected you when you were age 5 are now holding you back when you're trying to own the best martial arts school in town. And you're the CEO and owner of this school. So I remember that event, tons of breakthroughs. People in the audience were laughing and crying and coming up and jumping on the microphone and sharing these breakthroughs. And about halfway through the first day, we were on a break and I looked at Lauren and I'm like, I think this is the formula. Like, I think we just figured it out. And by day 2, that's when we started going into the more business focused topics like we had previously done with marketing and sales and things like that. But the difference this time was everybody was like, it was almost like they got out of their own way. Like they started to kind of clear their minds and look at this beautiful, awesome future that they had in front of them, and they stopped sabotaging themselves. So post-event, we like to measure success, right? Inspect what you expect in business. And we would see people have that big momentum spike right after the event, as everybody does, especially if you've gone to like a Tony Robbins event and you walk on the fire. You come back, for a couple of weeks and you're pumped up, but then life gets normal again. But this time we saw incrementally more success post-event. And then we get the one email. This guy reaches out. He sends me an email and he's like, hey, man. And it was only one out of hundreds of attendees. And he goes, hey, just want to give you feedback. He's like, I didn't like the event. He goes, I don't like all this personal development stuff. I'm here for business. And I said, hey, man, I think this is the way it is. I said, we had an overwhelmingly positive experience, not only for us as presenters and hosts, but also the feedback that we've got from everybody else. Now, needless to say, he's not in our program anymore. I still love that guy. I give him grace and I have a lot of respect for him. But I don't think that he was ready to face some of the tough conversations that needed to be had. And as men, you see these guys that are unhealed. Like they're still fighting those battles. If their kid spills a cup in the house, they just go crazy on their kid. And it's like, why does that have to exist? It's because that guy's not healed yet. He hasn't done that work. They call it like shadow work. I don't know. It's kind of a weird name. We just call it transformational work. But you got to go back and figure out like why you are the way you are. It's a pretty awesome process.
Yeah, I was talking to you at lunch, and one thing that you talked about odds of things passing on. So if you had a bad parent, that means you're going to be a bad parent. Sometimes you can see repetitive patterns or like a generational curse. Yeah. And I'm sure you had situations of examples of that nature. That's why you're so adamant about figuring out.
100%.
So any examples that come to mind or something that was a breakthrough?
When you talk about like kind of in the religious side of things, you'll hear about generational curses, right? I like to say we unintentionally pass forward the chains to our children that we don't break ourselves as men and as women too. When my wife and I got really focused and serious about everything, we started looking at our own lives, and it was like alcoholism was running in our families on both sides. My biological dad was addicted to narcotics. Believe it or not, my biological dad was also obese. So, and I've never been able to gain weight in my whole life, so I don't know what happened with that. But poverty was being passed forward. So addictions, poverty. I've been very open about overcoming my own sexual addiction. I was addicted to pornography. I've spoken openly about that. A good friend of mine, Mason Kane, created an amazing program that's helped thousands of guys. So it's like, we look at that and we go, what can we say is going to stop with us? Because when I look at my kids and how awesome they are and how innocent they are and how just amazing that they are, I don't want them to have to go through all of those same struggles and those setbacks that I did. Like, let my scars, serve their purpose so that they don't have to get the same ones. And I think, that's why it's just such an important topic for us. Like when we do our coaching programs and we do our events and stuff, I want to be able to help people break free from those chains, no matter what they're dealing with in their life. Because, nobody's perfect. Like our parents didn't have the magic parent handbook that taught them how to be the best mom and dad. I'm sure yours didn't either. And with awareness right now, we have the ability to change not only the future for ourselves, but for our kids. And it's going to be great to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you are in a tough position sometimes because you had a conversation in the last time I saw you that you went to a party. Mm-hmm. I think one of your kids had a friend and you took, and I'm not sure how acquainted you were with the adults.
Yeah.
But the bottom line was the topic of the conversations were all very lame in the sense or irrelevant or not goal-oriented.
Different level.
At different levels.
Yep.
And you used an expression. About having many options.
Yes.
So they're talking about all the different options that they were going. And then you are in a situation where you exercise a position of leadership. So you said, man, I don't have as many options where I'm here, where I am now, compared to all those guys out there. Excuse me. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on that, because I think one of the things with leadership is the conscience that you have to acquire, that if you're going to get to a level of leadership, you cannot have the same behavior.
With leadership, it requires evolution, right? So we should always strive to become better leaders at all times. And with that being said, there's a concept of self-leadership, right? Mm-hmm. We have to be in a position where we're not going to lie to ourselves. We're going to be brutally honest with ourselves at all times. And I'm talking about situations like, you might have an employee who's not doing a good job, and you downplay it. You're like, oh, they're okay. I'll keep them on the team. And then you realize you've kept them on the team too long. Or you might have somebody that, let's say, for whatever reason in business, like their retention rate is really bad. Like they're losing students. And that owner says to themselves, oh, it's not a big deal. They're just not a good fit. Or, my area is just a bad area and they can't afford my high prices. They're lying to themselves instead of facing the brutal hard facts of, is my class really awesome that I'm teaching? Is my business really living up to the brand standards that it should be, right? So as leaders, we unintentionally have this temptation that we like to isolate. We like to isolate. And what I mean by that is when things are going really, really well, we tend to isolate. We're like, oh, I'm on top of the game. Everything's great. But also when things are going horribly wrong, we tend to isolate as well. So I like to say that the biggest temptation of leadership is isolation. And this also opens up the door where it's like, look, you need a circle of guys around you. And when I say guys, I'm talking about women too. My wife talks about this all the time as well. But it's like we need that circle of people who can lift us up. Now, here's where this ties into leadership and the concept that you brought up. So I want you to envision like a triangle, right? And at the bottom of the triangle where it's the widest, that's where like your lowest common denominator, low effort humans are. It's like people at the bottom have plenty of options. I'll give you two examples. It's like if you're at a red light and the light turns green and the person in front of you doesn't immediately go through, or when it turns green, they don't go through the green light, right? Like they just sit there. They're probably playing on their phone. A person with a lot of options is going to honk. They're going to use the middle finger. They're going to start yelling. They might even get out of their vehicle and try to start a fight. They have plenty of options. But as your influence in your leadership increases and you're at the top, you have less and less options. Another example, we were out at lunch. The pineapple took a little bit longer to come to the table than it should have. I was cool about it. You were cool about it. Because we don't have this many options to act any way that we want. We were cordial, we were friendly, we were understanding, we gave grace because we're up here. So we want people in our circle who are also at the top of that pyramid who have less options. And what's interesting about that, when I say less options, that doesn't mean less freedom. It actually means more freedom. And going back to the story that you brought up, my son gets invited to a birthday party. Okay. And I'm excited to take him to the birthday party. He's pumped up. He wants to go on. They have this like water slide, and you guys should probably get one at your HQ. I'm sure the guys would like that. But I'm sitting around and I'm hearing the other parents having conversations about how to get out of DUIs. What vape flavor? Like, have you tried the Cosmic Raspberry vape yet? Just stuff that's like irrelevant. Just stuff that I would consider, and no judgment, man, because like I certainly haven't had a perfect life by all means. But as we evolve, we start to look back and we're like, man, those types of conversations hold us down. And that's why you'll see circles of people holding each other down. Mm-hmm. Then on the flip side, I go to, we have this men's group that meets up once a month in Tampa. And it's all high-level entrepreneurs, 7, 8, 9-figure guys. The conversations there are drastically different. Like you'll overhear a conversation of, this guy just got 10% more over his asking price for this massive business that he's selling. And he's going to cash out at over $100 million. So it's like, what circle do you want to be with? And anybody that's watching this right now, if you find yourself in a lower circle, you don't have to stay there because that's where you are today. You can start to look for those individuals that can help lift you as they climb. And I'm going to say this right now. I used to be really intimidated, especially when I was like 18 or 19 and just getting my first start in business. I was always afraid of like the older guys and the more wealthy guys, the more successful guys, judging and not accepting me. But what I quickly discovered is that if you're a hard worker, if you have that discipline and you're a giver, right? Like you want to just be that type of person that's generous and helpful. People 10 steps above you will open you with open arms. They'll welcome you with open arms and bring you into their circle as well. So you can start to position yourself with some really good people that way, but you got to walk the talk. You can't be the guy that's like talking about the raspberry vape around a circle of guys that are talking about 100 million exit. Yep. They're not going to vibe with that at all.
Yeah. You said something, and like I said, I'm not judgmental either, but you said something about one time when you're still, I guess you would drink a beer here and there, social drinking, you name it. And you were in a particular group where we had very well-to-do, successful business people.
Yeah.
And one thing that was striking to you was nobody was drinking any alcohol. Can you elaborate on that?
That was a huge eye-opener. So my wife and I, we would have a couple drinks, usually 1 or 2 a night, not every night. And this was, years ago. And we went to an event in Los Angeles. And I remember, so to be part of that group, it was an initial $25,000 investment, and then you invest money in travel going back and forth across the coast. So we were probably about $35,000 invested into that group. And I remember on one of the breaks, we're kind of standing in the hallway, and there's several guys, and all of them were crushing it. Like multiple guys in that circle, 100 million plus. There was a guy who, kind of ironically, he was at $1 billion, but he was like, he had some e-cigarette thing. So even though I don't believe in his product, you still have to have a certain skill set to increase a business to $1 billion or more per year. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing them talking and I'm listening to what they're saying, right? But I'm also observing them because I'm trying to learn from them. I'm trying to learn everything, like body language, the way they communicate, the things that they think about, the things they say, and also what they don't say. And as I'm observing these guys, and this is just a great habit to have anytime that you're trying to level up, is you want to really observe the people above you. I look at my hand and I'm having a bourbon with ice. And I look around and none of them are drinking. And I realized there was a pattern there, and I remember putting it down. And man, Lauren and I, we haven't drank a single drop of alcohol since 2020. And that's one of the best things I will say that we've ever done, not only for our mental clarity, but for our health. And most importantly, the kids are watching. Like our kiddos are watching all the time, and they've never seen us drink. Our 2 youngest kids have never seen us drink. So, and I always say this from stage. I'm like, prove that there's some health benefit to drinking. You'll have people that are like, oh, a glass of wine will help you with your heart. No, come on. Let's be real. Like, alcohol doesn't help you. I'm sorry. Like, people can disagree with me all day long. It's fine. I still love them.
Yep. So you, one thing though, whenever you have your events, like you said, the breakthrough, people feel open enough and comfortable enough to go on the microphone and share stuff that, I mean,
you're not expecting to hear.
I mean, from sexual abuse to you name it, just a betrayal of a spouse. I mean, it was just like, but it's kind of like a moment of truth, but I feel like of liberation to whatever degree. And I was like, wow. Yep. Was that something that was always the case? Or like since the very first one, or is something that eventually evolves into what it has become?
So it was definitely an evolution because the more that we dove into personal transformation, the more that God was putting on our heart that we had to walk in the light. Like, we had to be transparent. If we were expecting them, our members and guests in the audience, to open up, and people in our coaching program to open up and actually face their demons, to face the traumas, to face the things that happened in their life, we had to openly show that we were doing it as well. And, we were opening up about the infidelity that we had in our marriage on both sides. We were opening up about the alcoholism, the pornography addiction. My wife opened up about she was sexually abused twice in her life, once at age 7 and then once at age 16. And when you share something like that and you're vulnerable and just real and authentic, the most incredible thing happens. It gives people the opportunity to realize, A, they're in a safe space, and B, they're not being judged. It's like we're all humans together. Like, we all have things that we've gone through that are extremely painful. And once we can face that and we can start the healing process, like, you're not going to come to our event and be healed. Like, I'm not the Lord. But what I will say is day one of healing can start as soon as you're willing to look deeply at what's going on behind the scenes. So we just realized, hey, we've got to walk the talk. We've got to be the people. If we're on the microphones, I want to be that guy that's like, I get where you've been because I've been there too. I've had those sleepless nights. I've looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, dude, I hate what I see. How can I go beyond that? And it's been a huge transformative process for us as leaders. And we've helped hundreds and hundreds of people. I mean, you've been there, you've seen it.
Yeah. From a personal perspective, when I did the telling of the story that you tell yourself, and not trying to elaborate on the process, but the good and the bad, whatever you recall.
Yeah, the timeline exercise.
The timeline. And I remember there was one relative of mine that I hadn't spoken in a long while. You know, and there was somewhat of a fallout at a point in time. And then I remember you saying it was at that nice house, that mansion, I guess, that you rented out.
Yeah.
Out in Florida. And we had about 30 minutes of intermission. And you said, almost like a challenge, go and talk to someone, call somebody.
Make that phone call.
And I kind of walked out of the room thinking, I'll give it a try, this and that. And I tried to call. I tried to find out the number. I didn't have the number of that person. So I was able to obtain the number. Then I called. The person didn't answer. And then I text. And then, there was no reply or anything. I said, maybe you went into deaf ears or it's not available, whatever. So by the time I'm coming back, we're supposed to start again the session. I talked to you and said, hey, that person that I'm trying to call, just call me back.
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
I do.
And I went there and I spoke for a good half an hour at least.
Yeah.
And I remember one passage of the entire conversation was basically, out of the one or two things that were not okay, there are 98 that were great.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And we always focus on the two that aren't.
Yeah. And I was like, so I actually cried while I was talking to that person. It still makes me emotional to think about it. And it touched them It touched him in a way that even today, I receive text messages from him at least 4 times a week.
I love it.
You know what I'm
I love
saying?
it. You know, if we look at the concept, we teach people that you're as sick as your secrets, right? So secrets could be the things that you're silent about, the things that you're suppressing, things that you're hiding, things that you're keeping in the darkness, right? And especially as men, what are we taught? Don't cry, don't talk about it, walk it off, be a man, be tough, right? And there's a lot of importance to being able to lead like that and to be that strong, male figure. But also, if we neglect the stuff that's going behind the scenes, it's going to break us down over time. It is going to crack us. So we had a guy who was at a similar event, right? So we do the mansion event for our diamond level members, and he was at the event. And one thing that was really cool is I knew that there was some forgiveness that he had to give to his own dad for some things that had happened in their past. And he brought it up, and the same challenge that I gave you, I said, go get on the phone with your dad. And he's like, I haven't talked to him in years. And I said, all right, cool. Today is day 1 of healing. Like, go talk to him. So he exits, he gets on the phone, he makes that call, he gives forgiveness. Because remember, forgiveness isn't always easy. It doesn't mean that you're supporting what the person did to you. It's a choice so that you stop holding yourself prisoner. And I'm going to tell you this right now. He came back from that phone call on fire in a good way. He's like, I'm ready to grow my business. He's like, I don't have any ill will towards my dad anymore. He's like, I can see a better future. So flash forward a couple years later, he's grown his business by like $2 million extra a year. All right. He's lost, I want to say he went from almost 400 pounds down to 235. So that was incredible. And it just took some tough love. But he had to face the things that he was hiding from, right? Stop kind of, we call it playing in the gray. It's like, you can't live in the gray. It's either black or white. You got to be in the light or you're in the darkness. Like there's no in between. And he just kind of bounced back and forth, but he got it together, and his entire life has changed. And his kids' lives have changed. Like his oldest son sent us a Facebook message and was like, thank you for saving my dad's life. And thank you for saving my parents' marriage. And I'm like, dude, all we did is ask him to call his dad. Right. But you can see that catalyst that starts all of those additional things that unfold.
Yeah. You talk about forgiveness. We did talk about holding grudges.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing that, man, and a lot of times I'm not trying to say anything about myself, but I don't hold grudges, and I look back at people that really intended to harm me, and I was always like, I always figure, okay, if I allow that person to be in a position to harm me, I have some responsibility, if not most of it, in the situation. And that brings to mind to me, and I'm sure you have strategies for that. How do you keep your inner circle clear or clean of negative influence of people that may come to you sooner than anticipated or deserved or didn't earn your trust maybe and proved to be a bad apple at a point in time? And I'm sure you had an evolution from that point, and how you were to where you are in regards to that part of how you control your surroundings.
With experience comes wisdom. Right. So, if you have been in business for 2 decades, like you're going to have more wisdom and more discernment on who's good and who's not. And I always like to say it's kind of funny. It's because, again, we have one life, right? So let's combine business and personal together for a moment. In business, you hire slowly and you fire fast. When that person proves that they're not a good fit on your team, you got to let them go quickly. They've got a whole other journey and a whole other chapter to fulfill in their life. You're not responsible for their next chapter, right? They are, right? But also in personal life, like when we talk about that circle of friends, it's like, let's bring them in slowly. Let's hire them slowly, but also fire them quickly, fire fast. And what I mean about that is you want to position yourself around people who share common values, but they're also not afraid to call you out. You don't want a bunch of yes men. Okay. I would rather have somebody like one of my best friends, I mentioned his name earlier, Mason. He will put me in check. Like if I'm, we call these like going into the ditch conversations. If he sees that I'm about to veer off the road and go into a ditch,
he'll call you out.
He's going to course correct. He's going to call me out and help me walk or drive on that straight line again. And I'll do the same for him. I'll do that for any of my friends. And we need to have boundaries, right? So if I get an invitation, and this happens all the time, especially within the industry, like you'll get invitations to go out and, the event is awesome. And then they have like an after party at a bar. That's fine. No judgment. You guys are grown. Do your thing. I'm going to politely and respectfully decline from going to that bar because number one, I don't drink. Number two, my wife struggled with alcoholism. This is out of respect to her. I'm not going to bring her to a bar. And I think thirdly, it shows a level of integrity that you have with your own self-promises. Because if we as men can't keep our words to ourselves when we're by ourselves, I think we're ineffective leaders. Like we can't lead, hundreds or thousands of people at that point. We have to be able to lead ourselves first. So I think that's just kind of a small example, but one that we can all relate to.
Yeah. That's the thing about, I guess, what I see happening to me, for instance. A lot of times, I don't try to claim anything. I have been in the game of martial arts for quite a while. I've been seeing up and downs. I've seen roller coasters. I've seen success stories. I've seen very big letdowns. And one thing that always remains steady is the fact that what I asked you earlier, what you see is not what you get.
Yeah.
A lot of times people have a story behind them, and a lot of times they don't reveal it. Okay. And I was talking about, getting my mask off here, because sometimes I feel like, I just want to say what I think. You know what I'm saying? And it's just kind of like this whole idea of procrastinating the firing when you feel that there is a red flag here, another red flag there. It's not like that guy who's the cheating husband, the husband who's getting cheated, and the wife is with another guy inside the bedroom, both naked. Mm-hmm. And then you look to the peek hole, and all of a sudden they turn off the light. Yeah. I don't have to assume things. It's good enough for me that it went that far. Yeah. For me to realize that there's plenty for me not to be trusting on that person or that situation. But the whole thing about it's kind of like turning the cheek. Oh, I'm going to give this guy a chance. So turn your cheek one time. Oh, I'm going to give that guy a second chance. And one of the things that I feel really guilty about as a man, as a leader, is that I've had quite a few black belts of mine in the past that I proved not being a good leader to them because I let them get away more than once with things that I should have called them out mm-hmm. right off the bat and probably get rid of them right then. You have taught them a lesson. Yeah. And I kind of like, because you have that personal mixed up with the business, how do you keep that blur line? I mean, because for you, I guess you're in an industry that you can hire professionals of different trades or different backgrounds. But in the martial arts, it's not uncommon that you're dealing with people that might be your students as well, which brings another set of relationship. That person has shared the match with you. And you have to understand, it's like a family bond. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? It's just like these people, they share more time with you than they do with their own relatives, And then, when things are due to happen, they happened, and you see signs of it and you don't act on it. And I almost feel like it becomes a monster, much bigger to deal with than what should be the case.
Yeah, and it's a monster dealt with. It's a monster that's contagious. So what happens is it starts poisoning the culture of the school or the organization, right? So this is why we have to have those conversations quickly. I like to say that silence is acceptance. Yeah. So us as a leader, whether we're leading an academy, an organization, or just in our home, silence is acceptance. If somebody is doing something and we don't check them, we can be kind. We don't have to be nice, but we can be kind. if we don't check them, if we don't help them kind of course correct, what we're saying in essence is, I accept what you're doing. And in fact, when you do it again and I don't say anything else a second time or a third time, now I'm encouraging you to continue that behavior that's not going to benefit anybody involved, right? So we have to be quick to have powerful conversations. We have to be quick to establish boundaries on the front end. One of the things that, you guys that are watching this right now, you can do this kind of as an exercise, is think about the way that you occur for people. People will treat us based on the way we occur for them. So if all of the sudden we occur as a leader at first, and then they start getting away with things that they know they shouldn't be doing, the occurrence is changing. They're starting to see us as a weaker leader, somebody that's that pretty much doesn't walk the talk. Like, they will challenge and question your own integrity because you're not calling them out. So I think with leadership, we can't be nice, but we need to be respectful and kind. And we've had, and I like to use the term, powerful conversations. There's never a bad conversation, but we could definitely have powerful conversations. Ask for permission. Pull that person to the side and be like, hey, can I have a powerful conversation with you? Or can I have an honest conversation with you for a moment? And give them feedback. Be like, from my perspective, this is what I'm seeing that's happening. I'm curious of your intentions, and I'm curious of what we can do to work together so that as we move forward, we don't have to have this conversation again. And people are either going to level up with you or they're going to level themselves out, and they're going to leave the door. And it's better to cut your losses early than to have that contagious cultural problem start to unfold in your school or your organization or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I think I saw one video from Roger, maybe can correct, Jeff Fisher. He does, conversational consulting. He tells people, how to be more assertive, whatever. And he kind of made the distinction between nice and kind.
Yeah.
All right. I can have a kind conversation with you, meaning this is how I really feel about things. Hear me out.
Yeah.
Compared to, hey, and blah, 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 try to justify. No. It's not about being nice. It's about being kind, meaning I'm going to really let you know how I feel about things.
Yeah, I think as men, a lot of us, and I can say this with experience, I was just in an event with a group called Rise Up Kings, and they work with thousands of business owners across the country. And I went to one of their events with about 40 other guys, and these guys range in size of business from, a few $100,000 a year to over $1 billion a year in business. And one of the commonalities that I noticed, not only from myself, but from them, is like, we all craved a strong, assertive father figure that could keep things real with us. And a lot of us didn't have that. Mm-hmm. A lot of us had dads that, an abusive dad is obviously a problem, but a neglectful dad is also a problem. So a lot of us started identifying like, hey, our dad was either away at work all the time, and we were never told that we're good enough. We were never told that we're growing up to be an awesome man. And we were just kind of left to try to figure that stuff out. So going to that event, it really showed me a deeper level of impact as a leader, and just ways that I can be a parent to my own kid and remind him when he's doing a great job, but also remind him like, there's going to be times, buddy, that I'm going to have conversations with you that are going to hurt your feelings, but I love you. I would give my life for you. I can be kind and respectful, but there's a difference between that and being nice and trying not to hurt feelings and trying to tell them things that they want to hear. Sometimes the most impactful, powerful conversations we can have is course correcting another man that's about to go off the wrong direction and say, hey man, I love you. This is what I need you to see. This is a blind spot of yours.
Yep. So it brings me to light this thing about, a lot of times I remember good friends of mine in the acting business.
Yeah.
Probably know some of them that I'm talking about. And one of the problems they had as they became more famous and achieved celeb status was that every person that came to them if he asked about their opinion on anything, the people would always mince their words and try to tell the best possible, feedback.
Like sugarcoating everything.
Sugarcoating everything, thinking, and it brings me to mind, when you talk about true friends that are the ones that tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And then when that doesn't happen, it gives you that sense either of illusion or disillusionment, meaning, man, I don't have anybody can tell me a straight truth on my face. They're always trying to kiss my butt.
They're trying to get something from you a lot of times.
Yeah, which is the case. Do you have that happening to you on occasion? Like people come to you with that?
So not only did I used to have that happening, I unintentionally was causing that to happen. So I was leading horribly in my early career. If you didn't love my ideas and do it the way that I wanted it and didn't, you there's no way that they could challenge anything that I said. We're going back 20 plus years ago. They'd be off my team. And it's like, that's the worst thing that you could do. My team now, they can call me out. They can offer ideas. They can give critical feedback. They can tell me things I don't want to hear. And in fact, I love when they tell me things that I don't want to hear. We had a member who reached out today, actually, and we like to do this with our members as well because I want that open feedback. And they were concerned because like a month ago we had a podcast. We call it Mindset Monday. We do it every Monday, and it's for our members. And we had a very aggressive tone around the lack of training that we were seeing some of our owners giving their salespeople. Like they weren't training their salespeople to the best of their ability. So you can have all the leads in the world and you could have the best program in the world, but if the person on the phone or the person giving a tour is horrible at sales, your conversion rates are going to be really bad and your business is going to struggle, right? So this member reached out to one of our coaches and spoke their mind, and I'm going to be able to follow up with them probably later this evening. And I'm excited about that conversation because it's an opportunity for us to learn, but it's also an opportunity for us to clarify our intentions with some of the things that were said in that podcast. So I think when you look at people who have that celebrity status or that perceived leadership status over any organization, they have to be very cautious of the yes men. We can't be surrounded by people that just want to be in that circle because of that status. Like, we want people that want to earn their place to hang out with us. We want people that we can surround ourselves with that'll lift us up as well, regardless of status. And in fact, if you're in a really like legit circle, there is no status. You just see fellow men.
I got a question for you, Duane.
Please.
As a servant leader, somebody who's in a position serving someone like yourself, I serve Master Machado. I know there's people probably out there asking themselves, what type of training, what type of skills should I be looking to get from myself to be able to serve better?
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that, communication is obviously one thing, but from all the things you've seen, all the people you've hired, I'm sure you've had to train some of those people how to call you out, have to show them what it means to be a servant leader and to help you do your job better. So what kind of recommendations could you give for them?
Yeah, definitely. I used to hire helpers, not leaders, because other leaders used to intimidate me. I had to be the guy in the organization that had the answers. And then I realized that only gets you so far in the game of success. The true leaders that are crushing it, that are making a massive impact in humanity, they are creating other leaders. It's not like, I don't want to just bring you on to the team and teach you how to be really effective at your job. My sole job is to teach you how to be the best leader possible so you can actually lead better than me in your respective division or part of the company. I want to be able to go to you to ask you questions. I don't want to have to be the source of all the knowledge. So I think now we have a responsibility, if we want to really grow a big organization, our main job is to raise up other leaders who are better than us. And that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. You remind me, a friend of mine, a student, one of my students, he had, I'm not sure if he still is in the same business, but he had like a graphic design company.
Yeah.
And he became like very successful. He scaled, tenfold the company. And he explained to me at one point in time that instead of him trying to be the best doing his work, he became the best to finding others that were better than him.
Exactly.
At what he did. And once that took place, the guy said, man, all I had to do was like give them the reins and inspect what I expected. And we just like,
I love it.
it was amazing.
So here's a great example, right? We work with so many school owners. We will have people in our program that will hit an enrollment plateau. So let's say, for example, we have a school owner that no matter what they do, how hard they work, whatever ads they run, they somehow always hover around 150 students. Like we would see these plateaus, these caps that would happen. And finally it hit us and we're like, wait a minute, how many students did your instructor have? And they'd go, 150. And then we'd look at a different member who was stuck at 100. When we would go, hey, how many students did your instructor have? Oh yeah, he'd always have around 100. Wow. And then this idea hit us where we started to create this theory that they're not trying to outshine the master. Like they're afraid to outshine their own instructor. So if the instructor has 150, the moment that they start creeping up to 150 enrollments, they take their foot off the gas.
Subconsciously.
Yes. So then it's like, wait a minute. If let's say that you have 150 and one of your top black belts, he doesn't want to offend you, so he only gets 140, and then one of his black belts down the road only has 120, your lineage is choking itself out until there's nothing left. So when we look at leadership, it's like we want the people on our team to outperform us. I have members in Success Team Coaching right now that we're earning way more money with a single school than we ever did. And I am so excited about that. We want to instill a level of success in this next round of leaders that's beyond anything that we ever did on our own. And that's how I truly believe like that's a real legacy. Like that's a legacy that continues to grow instead of slowly fade out and disappear.
In jiu-jitsu and in life, the foundation is everything. With a weak base, you cannot perform at your best. That's why I'm so excited to share Abstract Champ with you. I've been on the mats my whole life, and I know how important it is to stay connected to the ground. Abstract Champ brings that philosophy into everyday life. They're stylish, they're functional, and they're designed to evolve with you. So if you care about performance, recovery, and health from the ground up, check them out. Abstract Champ is all about foot freedom. And once you feel it, you'll never go back.
Let's jump into that. Let's talk about, I asked a question earlier about how to build servant leaders. How do we build servant leaders that become part of our team, part of our business, for our sake, even our jiu-jitsu association?
I love it.
How do you plant? You were talking about planting seeds earlier, but maybe planting a roadmap or a blueprint for them to grow their own little kingdom. That's part of our giant overall bigger kingdom, if that makes sense.
A lot of school owners that we work with, they're so petrified of their advanced students or their black belts like branching off and doing their own thing, and then even worse, taking students with them. Like we hear that all the time, and we see it occasionally. I mean, it happens pretty regularly throughout the year. So instead of having that as a fear, like let's turn that into a fortune. Let's say, you know what, when you join as a white belt, or you could have this conversation with like all of your students as quickly as tonight if you wanted, but it's like, hey guys, I want to see you win. I want to see you be able to inspire more kids and more teens and women and men and fighters and all these people. So laying out a roadmap to success and saying, we want to partner with you. We want to walk next to you in this journey to be able to open up your own school and to help you become successful at it and to learn the things that may have taken us 30 years to learn the hard way. Let's package it up and learn it in 2 or 3 years and watch how fast everything grows. And then it takes the fear away. And it opens up that conversation where as you see somebody getting really, really good within your own school, you're not scared that they're going to try to take off one day and take half of your adult class, right? But instead you're encouraging them to like, hey, look, let's look at the map. Where can we open up a school together? You know?
100%. So tell me a bit about, I asked about your routine. Let's talk about Duane,
Okay.
the individual, the human being. Okay. So I'm going to kind of give you some questions here, like a ping pong, not rushing or anything, just kind of going, because I had that question here in my head in the beginning. Just like, what's your main purpose or your main goal in life?
So, like I said a little bit earlier, the game has changed. I want to see people saved, man. Like I feel a strong calling to bring God into the conversation, and I know what He's done for my life and accepting Jesus. And it's some people hear that and they're like, oh man, that's woo woo and that's all religious stuff. But I mean, it was real for me, and I've seen some miracles in everyday life and people that have made complete transformations, including myself and my wife and our oldest daughter and some close friends as well. So I think for me, it's like, I want to see people live their best life. I want to be able to see them, just get to a level where they can give back and they can pour love into people, live in a world of abundance and not scarcity. And kind of, on a personal level, I look back over my career, when we were school owners and I used to teach martial arts, I always had a passion to see kids level up. Like that was always my passion. I want kids to have a great life. I want them to be safe. I want them to be protected. I want them to grow up to be leaders and experience what success can be. So I always focused on martial arts. I like that was the vehicle to help kids. And then it shifted and we're like, okay, well, wait a minute. We can only teach so many kids ourselves personally. So then I said, well, what if we start helping other school owners have big programs? Because if you step back and you think about it, maybe I can only teach a couple hundred kids. Collectively, if we have 500 school owners, we can teach tens of thousands of kids, right? So then as we built out Success Team Coaching and accomplished that, something shifted. And this like aha moment came into play because as Lauren and I focused inwardly on repairing and restoring our marriage and really focusing on the kids, I go, wait a minute. If we really want to help kids, it's got to start with mom and dad. It's got to start with marriages. It's got to start with helping families stay together. And I think that's where we took a shift and we created a passion project where we have a coaching program around marriage, and that's been really awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
When you talk about faith, there are three things that I see, the three words that they come along, and people always say inspiration, revelation, or desperation. One of those three leads you eventually to faith.
Yeah.
In your particular case, was that more than one, or which one was the most predominant?
I would say without a shadow of a doubt, it was desperation, but also an ultimatum. I used to hear people say, oh yeah, I heard from God. I heard God's voice. And I used to think that was silly. Like in fact, up until 2020, like I believed in God, but dude, I wasn't a follower of Jesus or anything. Like I thought it was all kind of silly and funny. And it just got to a point where I had created so much success, but I wasn't fulfilled. And there was a lot of stuff that I was hiding from my wife that was just eating me alive on the inside. Things that I had done early on into our marriage that were just entirely unacceptable. And there was a point where, and I'll just be completely vulnerable, where as a man, I felt like a complete loser. I felt like my wife deserved a better husband. I believed that there was another man that was supposed to be in my home raising my kids. I felt that my kids should have deserved a better dad because I wasn't walking the talk back then. And one night in 2020, you got COVID and all this crazy stuff going on. I started getting these thoughts of like, I don't deserve to live. So it was like these suicidal thoughts, and I could push it away. I could be like, oh, that's stupid, and then it would come back. And it would be like these like little impulse things. And then once those thoughts turned into like, hey, wait a minute. What if you did kill yourself? Like, where would you do it so the kids couldn't walk in and find your body? How could you do it so it wasn't messy? Like, once that shifted, I was like, what the heck is going on in my mind right now? Like, I'm this high energy guy, successful, like all this stuff on the outside. You know, you look at our social media, like life is great. We've got all the smiling, happy photos. But on the inside, when I was by myself, I'm like, this sucks, man. Like I'm not being the man I'm supposed to be. So maybe I shouldn't be here, right? So when it shifted, when those thoughts shifted to like planning, like maybe I should take my life. There was a night I was laying in bed. And, you know, I would pray every now and then, but I prayed that night and I like meant it. Like I really prayed and I'm like take this pain away. Like, what do I need to do? Like, it's like a surrender moment, you know, and I didn't even really know what that was. And I heard this voice and it was not my voice. And it said, confess, repent, and tell Lauren everything. I heard it. And I was like, that was weird. Okay. So the next morning I wake up and I looked over at Lauren and I said, hey, I think we need to have a conversation today. I'm going to go drop the kids off at my parents' house so we can talk. And we went to a local like nature preserve. So we were out in the woods and we're walking on this trail. And I said, I've got to tell you some stuff that is really hard for me to get off my chest. I said, and I also want to let you know ahead of time that I respect any choice that you make after I tell you what I need to tell you. And that's when I sat down and I told her all the bad stuff that I had done early on into our marriage and the infidelity and the lies. And I asked for forgiveness. So it was like, I had to surrender everything. I had to be willing to lose it all. I mean, I honestly thought there was a real chance that she was going to want a divorce and I'm not going to see my kids that much anymore. Like and the business would fall apart, right? Like that's what I honestly thought. And she forgave me. So I had this momentary lapse of like, wow, I experienced forgiveness and I experienced what I would deem as unconditional love because I just said some crazy stuff to her. And I felt this momentary like release, like all the pressure, like I could breathe again, like years of just holding stuff in. I could breathe, right? And she looks at me and she goes, I have to tell you some stuff too. And then she told me what she had done. And so it went from like sigh of relief to like, oh God, I was betrayed too. And that was a lot to deal with in that moment, as you could imagine. And I said, look, I forgive you. We're going to work through this. I don't want a divorce. And she agreed. She's like, I don't want one either. And as we were walking out of that trail to go back home, I heard God again. And he says, get your family home or I'm taking everything away from you. And he wasn't talking about go home, like go to my house. He was saying go to church. And that's when we started going back. And I look back at that process, man, and it was like just one powerful level up every single time. I mean, just to the point where Lauren and I were able to go, hey, let's sit down and have conversations about things we've never shared with anybody about our childhood. You know, and that's when she opened up about how she was molested when she was 7 and she was raped in a parking lot at age 16 by some random guy that was breaking into cars. Like violent, okay? Like the definition of a violent rape happened to her. And I just sobbed, like just broke down. Because even though her and I had hurt each other, I was able to see the little girl again in her. And she was able to see that little boy that was in me, where I was never good enough. My biological dad had left. You know, my parents got divorced, and that took a huge impact out. So I overcompensated. How do you overcompensate? You make more money, right? But that wasn't the answer. I had to heal from those wounds. So, man, it's like going down that level of transparency allowed for us to heal. And it started with a prayer, and literally, I believe I heard God. Like, I'm curious if it wasn't God, I'm curious what I heard then. And that's part of our testimony.
That's amazing, man. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
And I know you did told me.
I don't know how deep you guys go on the podcast.
A portion of that story in your event, you're adamant about being transparent to your members. You lead by the example, but it doesn't change the fact that when you hear, it's so powerful. My goodness. Amen.
Yeah, I hope anybody that hears that story just knows that, like, forgiveness is possible. It's a real thing. Unconditional love is possible. And you can definitely heal from your past. You know, there's nothing that's like too far down the road that you can't turn back from.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've experienced it.
In my most lonely situation in my life, when I lost my dad, he passed in September of 1990, 5 months after I came to the United States. And I never knew that it would be the last time that I would see him at the airport. So when I left Brazil, prior to, his passing, and I remember I was very lonely. I had to take care of some business. I was getting my, at that time, my H-1B visa, having jiu-jitsu as a unique expertise. Nobody knew Brazilian jiu-jitsu other than me and my cousins back then. So I know I had to come back from a cabin that we rented out in Big Bear, which was a couple-hour drive from Los Angeles. And I used to have a loft in this rental house that my brothers and I used to live in Redondo Beach. And I was very alone because I was like thinking about my mom, my life. I didn't know exactly what was going on. Things were uncertain with my cousin at that time in our situation. And it was a very dark night, but starry sky, stars all over, right? So you realize you feel lonely, but you're not alone, that kind of feeling, right? And out of impulse, I started to pray out loud, just a prayer on my own. And all I could say was, I see everything that you create in front of me. The stars, the trees, everything. It was dark. The only thing I could see was a canopy of stars, like above me, and the eucalyptus trees, whatever. But then I said really with a lot of, I was urging that to happen. It's like, if you hear me now, I need a sign. Doesn't mean that I don't believe in you, but I want to see it. And, you see falling stars, shooting stars here and there, but I've never seen one that lasted that long. So the minute I finished my sentence, that thing crisped the sky. It was like a firework.
Yeah.
It was falling, and eventually dissipated. So I was kind of like the hair was raised on my body. I was kind of like feeling like a chill inside my chest, and I had a bit of tears. There was not even of crying out impulsively. I was just like tearful. My body was reacting to the situation without me even realizing the impact that was having on me. And I always have been convinced of the existence of God.
Yeah.
But there was a feeling that I had that time. That was revelation, but a mix of desperation with revelation, right? So I felt, I don't care if I'm the last man on earth. I am not, and nor I will ever be alone. I'm always with him. So it was one of those moments, But I have to say, though, like you said, in the moments that things are not going the way they're supposed to in your life, every time me and my wife identified we're not thinking enough or we're away from God.
Yeah.
We're not dedicating enough time to it. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And anytime we kind of, okay, let's correct our course, things starts to get back to where they're supposed to be, even better. So there's a lot of power in the thing that you're saying. And I feel we are so tempted to be deviated from our course because we have so many things that are happening that can be distracting or can be influencing in a negative way. Like you said, that those testimonials, man, poof, you know, like the thing that you said right there. Oof, I'm catching.
It gets
my breath
deep,
here.
man.
Yeah.
You know, there's people, and I'll just be, you know, kind of transparent on this as well. But we're not here to hide our beliefs, right? Like, I'm never going to try to force anybody to go to church or do any of that stuff. But I will speak from a very confident, personal spot when I say that accepting Christ changed my life for the best. And what's interesting is, you know, like much like the story that you shared, you know, you look out into nature, man, I experience God when I'm in nature. Like if I go to the beach or I'm traveling and I see the stars and just, I remember one of the first times that I felt what I thought was like God's creation. It's when I went scuba diving and I went underwater and saw like this tropical reef for the first time. I was like, man, there's no way that's an accident. Like there's no way that all of this is an accident, right? So kind of from like a logical, tangible perspective, I'm like, man, there's got to be a creator. There's got to be God. And you know, as we started to get back into church, it started kind of weighing on my heart. Like, hey, why don't you read the Bible? Like, read it, see what it's all about. You know, and when I was younger, I'd like flip through it. I went to Sunday school a couple times and had no clue what anybody was talking about. There was like the Noah's Ark story and David and Goliath, and we all remember those. But then you start learning about all this other stuff. And I remember the first time that I completed the Bible, there's like this like year-long reading plan. So you read just a little bit each year, and there's like a little bit of like a debrief afterwards where they tell you, they kind of help you understand what you just read. And it takes like 8 minutes a day. It's super easy, bite-sized pieces. But once I started getting into that, I was like, wait a minute. All of these business books and all of these personal development books, they all have common themes that I was reading about in the Bible. And I'm like, oh, that's where a lot of that comes from. So that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me as well. And then, you know, the more that I was getting into everything, it was like the more I started studying, hear this concept called sanctification. And sanctification is like you accept the Holy Spirit, you get baptized, and the Holy Spirit starts working on you from the inside, making you want to be more holy, more set aside. And, you know, I know it sounds a little crazy for anybody that hasn't jumped into any type of religion like that, but you know, we all make bad choices. We sin, we do bad stuff sometimes, but as you get further and further down the road, it like causes you to not have those desires to do those things anymore. And I think that was a big part of us giving up drinking as well. It was like the desire went away. Like it just wasn't there anymore. So that was a big part of that as well. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And we've lost members over it, by the way. You know, I've lost probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 members who, you know, once we started, like, I remember I'd post something on Facebook, hey, you know, check out this scripture, you know, I'd post like Proverbs or something. And then a week later, somebody would complain and they're like, I don't like how all Jesus you're getting, you know, you're getting weird. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't drink anymore. I really want the best marriage possible. I want to be the best husband possible. I donate a lot of money to the church that helps single moms and helps homeless people and helps build schools in other countries. Like, all right, cool. Call me weird. Like, whatever. I feel good with my decision.
So that's the thing that a lot of times people get stuck with. And I think that's a good indicator. Like, it's not just what you say, it's the results that or the actions that are taking place.
Yeah, there should be results.
Yeah. The results and the actions. So I have to admit a couple of things here, okay? So when I was a blue belt, and it's going to relate to what you're saying, I used to make this mental exercise. What would Rickson Gracie do in this position? I was a freaking blue belt. And let's say Rickson, he was like the perfect example of the samurai of the family because he incorporated that. He was the best in the family. He was so skilled, so talented. Had all the attributes.
So I'm a blue belt right now. And I say, what would Carlos Machado do?
Hey, right. Don't do everything I tell you, though.
Okay.
Do what I do, I guess.
Okay.
No, I'm just, what is it? Do what I say, not what I do. Okay, never mind. I'm switching here. But going back to, and then I think I came across a book. I'm trying to remember that was a fact. What would Jesus do in this situation? And the thing is, there's such a gap between perfection and your aspiration to be perfect that no matter how much you are in the scheme of things, you'll never be perfect.
Right.
But your sole goal is to be better, to become better. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So for me, this is the greatest definition of purpose that I ever came across. So what's your goal in life? And my goal, I say sincerely, is not to be happy because happiness is such a circumstantial thing. My goal is to be better or to become better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because where there's growth, there's always, movement towards, I guess.
Yeah, there is.
Destiny.
There totally is. And striving to be more holy and just try the best that you can be, be the best that you can be in everything that you do. Yeah. Right. Going back to what we said earlier, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. We're in a leadership program in the church that has been really fascinating because it gives us like this behind the scenes look at like their staff meetings with hundreds of people and the books that they require us to read on leadership. And it's a really cool way of leading from the front, but also having that self-leadership so you do walk the talk, man. And I think that's what's missing in so many businesses and just so many households. It's like, the men need to step up. Mm-hmm. Like you could have a really crazy past. You could be living right now a crazy life and just turn from that behavior. Like it is possible. Like I did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have a
Yeah, I got a question for you.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I want you guys to talk about, maybe elaborate on the importance of knowing that in business and in your life that you don't necessarily, even though you serve those, right? You're a servant leader. That's what you are. You serve your customers, your students, Master Machado with his academy, his affiliate owners. But I'd like for you guys to talk about the importance of knowing that everyone is not for you and you're not for everyone. Because I think too many people in business nowadays, especially academy owners, will take anyone and everyone that comes to the door as long as they're willing to pay. But that might end up detrimental in the long run. So not just in martial arts, but in any business. I'd like for you guys to talk about that and why it's important to know who your customer is, or your audience is, and who's right for you, and why that matters so much.
Yeah, it matters a ton because if you don't outline your culture, if you don't outline who qualifies to be a student or who qualifies to be a team member, you start unknowingly sometimes making shortcuts, or you make decisions based on things that shouldn't really matter. And in business, a lot of times we base that decision on money, right? So we'll keep that one family enrolled that always complains, that, always talks negatively and tries to get other moms and dads in the lobby to agree with them. We're going to keep them because we're so afraid of losing their tuition, right? So we'll shortcut ourselves from money. And we have to be able to step back and identify, you're right, not everybody qualifies. Not only on our team, it's easy to look at employees and be like, not everybody qualifies as an employee, but not everybody qualifies as a student, client, customer, member, etc. There's been a couple of examples. I remember early on when we launched our company, where we had a school owner who jumped on a coaching call. And one of the things that we always like to say is, hey, let's start with 3 wins. Give us 3 wins. They could be business, personal, family, faith, family, fitness, finance, whatever. Just identify 3 things, right? And he goes, you know what, man? He's like, I don't want to do this Tony Robbins stuff. And we're like, okay, that's a first. Let us explain why we do this, right? We want to start off on a positive. We want you to be that type of guy that's always looking for the positive things in life and in your business and your school, because the world is so quick to pull us down as men. And he's like, yeah, that stuff's stupid. All right, brother. I think we're good on this call today. I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're going to part ways professionally. And I refunded, I think at the time he was like $7,000 in, he had paid into his membership, and we stroked him a check for all $7,000. And here's what's interesting about that. Because the martial arts world is like this big and everybody knows everybody, he told a ton of people that we kicked him out. Guess what happened next? They saw that we had standards and that we're legit. And then they started signing up faster than ever, including some of his own friends that owned other schools in other areas. So we've seen a handful of times where we've had to respectfully dismiss members because they aren't leading from the front, or, you know, we can't want somebody's success more than them. Like if you have a student who's just not showing up to class and then they come up and they're like, hey, how come you're not promoting me to purple belt? You don't show up. What do you mean? Yeah, but I know all the moves. Sure. You don't show up. I can't want your success more than you're willing to show the actions that prove that you want your own success. So we have to be protective of our culture and take the money out of it. Take that equation out. Is this person, you know, legitimately the right fit? Yes or no? And this goes back to self-leadership, where you're not going to lie to yourself. And you deep down know the answer. Like if you look in the mirror, you know the answer and you know the action to take. Yeah. That was a great question.
Yeah. Well, what else can I say? Man, we're covering a lot of ground here, man. Holy crap. Yeah.
Yeah, it got deep.
You haven't talked about what you actually do, though, Duane.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there
yeah.
that maybe have not, and that's rude of me to not ask that question. I'd like for you to be a little bit selfish and toot your own horn a little bit. Talk about your organization, what you do, and who your target people are.
Our target people are anybody who has a heart to help kids, and that, you know, they just people that want to be successful, right? So we'll start with that. We work with a lot of school owners, mostly in the martial arts space, but we have a lot of people who come from like a dance industry background, or like cheer and tumble, gymnastics, you know, people like that work with kiddos. So what we do, and this goes back to like the recession that came through. So anybody that's been in business that's watching this podcast, if they've been in business for a couple decades, they remember the recession that came through like 2008, 2009, everything was getting crazy. We had a really unique business model back then. So we would go to other people's locations and teach class. So for example, I would go to 2 different daycares every morning, and in the afternoon, I'd go to 2 other daycares. And then at night, I would teach martial arts at a rec center or a church. And I did that Monday through Friday. My wife was doing that Monday through Friday and teaching dance. And then we had like a dozen other instructors that were doing that. So long story short, prior to the recession, we had over 2,000 students total, team of about a 10 to 12, give or take. And that's all they did. 2 or 3 classes in the morning, 2 or 3 classes in the middle of the day. And some of them would teach, 2 or 3 classes at night. Parents were paying us anywhere from $40 to $80 a month. It was a simple program. A lot of times we were only teaching once a week for 30 minutes at these daycares, and it was a 7-figure business. So going from, I mentioned earlier, I grew up with no money, to like being like 21, 22 years old at a 7-figure level, like you waste a lot of money and you make a lot of mistakes, firstly. So that's kind of the first start. When the recession hit, we were losing, oh my gosh, this is crazy. We were losing, I remember like the first month that it hit us, we lost like 30 students. And then the next month it was like 50. And then the next month it was like 80. And then the next month it was like 100. And it got to be where every phone call that was coming into our business line, and we were like, all the martial arts schools out there, that has like the number and then like the last 4 digits of the number spell the word kick.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest phone number ever, right? It was also my license plate. It was pretty funny. I have a story about my wife calling that phone number before we ever even met. I'll tell that in a second. But the recession hit. We started losing all these students, and it got to the point where we literally automated the cancellation process, because we knew that if you were calling us, you were calling to quit, right? So we were losing a ton of money. It got to a point where there was a pivotal moment where I'm driving this ridiculous stupid expensive Mercedes convertible with rims, like dumb chrome shiny rims that were probably only cool at like year 2000, but I still had them in like 2009. And I go through the drive-thru of Burger King. Okay. And I'm there to pick up food for Lauren and our oldest daughter at the time, Giselle. And the food was like $10, right? And I ordered myself like a Whopper or whatever. So I go to pay with a credit card and it declines. And I'm in a car at the time that was over $100,000. And I'm like, crap, try this card, decline. Now I'm getting embarrassed. Try this card. The third one declines. So I literally open up the center console, right? And I start scrounging around. I'm like, oh, $1, another $1, a bunch of quarters. I had just enough money to buy my wife's food and my daughter's food. I went home and had like ramen noodles or Chef Boyardee, something in a can, okay? And I remember feeling so defeated because we hadn't received our deposit from the billing company. So we had no money. And then it got so bad that I was strategically parking that same Mercedes so they wouldn't get repoed because the repo guy was after. We were almost 3 months late on those payments. So long story short, it gets to the point where I'm like, what do we do? Like, we're about to lose everything. And this is another God moment. So we're living on Clearwater Beach. I walk out and I'm at night. I'm standing in the Gulf of Mexico, now known as the Gulf of America. And it's pitch black. I'm in like, thigh high water. And I'm just like, all right, God, this sucks. I need a sign, man. Something. Give me something. And I literally just see this flash of summer camp, like the word summer camp. And I kind of laughed to myself and I'm like, okay, summer camp. I guess that's the sign. So I go back up to the condo and this was on a Friday. I tell Lauren, I go, hey, what are your thoughts about us hosting a summer camp? She's like, yeah, let's do it. I send an email to 14,000 emails that we had on our list from all of these satellite locations, all these daycares, all these rec centers that we had. And a lot of them were closing down, by the way. So we were like dropping locations and dropping students. And we sent out this email that's like, hey, we're going to open up a summer camp. It's going to be, the whole summer, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. Because I knew that those were like the operating hours of most daycare/summer camp programs. And on the dot, 50 kids. We got reply emails for a total of 50 kids. And those parents were like, yeah, we'll do it. And I looked at Lauren and I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing a summer camp. We had no idea what we were doing. We had the only location that we had a lease on, because all the other ones were satellites, right? The only location we had a lease on was in Tampa, and it was 900 square feet. It was a little tiny ballet studio. I had portable folding mats that I could Velcro together when we were rolling, and there was mirrors and a bar, like a dance bar that you could stretch on. And we had 50 kids every single day in the summer camp. And all of the parents were like, they love this program. I mean, it was so bad. This was such a horrible summer camp. Like, we didn't have money for tables and chairs, so the kids were eating snack on the floor. We had like just enough money for like some used Legos, and they're playing Legos. I'm teaching martial arts like 2 or 3 times a day. She's teaching dance and cheerleading, but the kids had a blast. And we saw that as an opportunity. And as we continued to grow that turned into an after-school program. That turned into a second location. And that turned into us testing it at satellite locations as well. So the biggest that we had were 5 at one time, right back into the 7-figure level of revenue. And then we're like, wait a minute, what if we teach summer camp and after school to other school owners that might be in the same position that we were, where they're like losing students can't afford to train anymore. And we started... the company launched at the very end of 2014. We had our first member January of 2015, who's actually still in the program. Shout out to the Pouchard family. They're up in Maine, Rob and Rebecca Pouchard, and their son Caleb and their daughter Kiana. They're awesome people. And it just, next thing you know, we spoke at the Super Show a couple times. We're like going around and everybody's joining the program. So that's what we do. We teach people how to do summer camp and after school. And if they're willing, we'll help them save their marriage.
Wild ride.
It's crazy. Like, I always get the follow-up question. Is that what you went to school for? I dropped out of school.
Well, disclaimer, I went to law school. Anyhow, Duane, my cup is full of joy from the
Same.
testimonial and the sharing of your upbeat personality and genuine givingness as a human. Thank you so much for your presence, for your effort in being here. I'm honored and pleased to have you, and I can't wait for everybody else to share, have that conversation shared with. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and this was awesome, man. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, my brother. Thank you.